My toxic stepmother and her spoiled, useless son threw me out of my late father's multi-million-dollar automotive research corporation, claiming I was just a delusional, overpaid garage mechanic living off their executive generosity. They wiped my name from the official engineering patents, locked me out of the central server vaults, erased 6 years of my engine telemetry data, and tried to sell my father's revolutionary autonomous electric powertrain technology to a massive global automotive conglomerate for $600 million. But they forgot one fatal oversight in their desperate scramble to become billionaire elite. My name is Evelyn, and I didn't just help design that electric drivetrain. I built the entire self-learning neural navigation system and safety firmware from the ground up. At their International Automotive unveiling gala tonight, I didn't just prove their flagship vehicle was a dangerous, non-functional shell. I triggered my remote diagnostic takeover live on international broadcasting, locked down the entire automated fleet inside the convention center, and watched federal agents march them off the stage in handcuffs. For nearly 7 grueling, exhausting years following my father's tragic passing, I lived like a forgotten shadow inside the grease-stained subterranean development bays of Vance Automotive Dynamics. My father, Robert Vance, was a legendary mechanical engineer who dedicated his entire life to building eco-friendly, ultra-high-performance electric propulsion systems. He was a brilliant scientist, but his absolute fatal flaw was trusting his second wife, Eleanor, to manage the financial assets and corporate board relations. When my father died under mysterious circumstances, Eleanor manipulated the corporate charter to install herself as chief executive officer, instantly promoting her lazy, arrogant son, Drake, to head of autonomous vehicle engineering. Drake was a guy who had flunked out of 2 top engineering colleges, couldn't tell the difference between a high-voltage inverter and a basic battery cell, but spent his days driving tailored luxury sports cars, buying champagne in expensive nightclubs, and posting fake engineering content on social media. My name is Evelyn. I inherited my father's sharp mathematical mind, his deep understanding of physics, and his relentless work ethic. While Drake spent his weekends partying on private yachts, I was locked inside the soundproof level for powertrain testing vault for 18 hours a day. I poured my sweat, intellect, and youth into completing my father's life project, a microprocessed, self-repairing electric powertrain codenamed Aegis Drive. Aegis Drive was not just a powerful battery or motor. It was a technological revolution. It was a synthesized autonomous powertrain capable of infinite kinetic energy recycling, sub-millisecond traction adjustment, and 100% accident prevention artificial intelligence. On the commercial automotive market, the licensing rights for such a breakthrough were worth over $500 million. But to me, it was never about the money or the fame. Aegis Drive was my father's legacy, a sacred promise I made to him before he died that his life's work would revolutionize transportation safety across the planet. My reward for 7 years of silent, solitary engineering breakthroughs arrived on a freezing rainy morning in early November. Eleanor summoned me to the glass-walled executive suite on the top floor. When I stepped into the room, Eleanor was sitting behind my father's old desk, sipping espresso. Sitting beside her was Drake, tossing a set of luxury car keys up and down with a condescending smirk. On the glass conference table lay a single sheet of paper, an immediate termination notice attached to an aggressive, lifelong non-disclosure agreement. Eleanor didn't even look me in the eye as she pushed a plastic pin across the glass. She told me in a cold, emotionless voice that my presence at Vance Automotive was no longer required. She claimed that because I was mentally unstable and lacked corporate brand appeal, I had become a massive liability to the company's upcoming international buyout. She announced that Drake was taking over as the sole creator and chief technology officer of the Aegis Drive project effective immediately. Drake leaned back in his leather chair, smirking right into my eyes. He bragged that his name had already been filed with the Federal Patent Office as the primary inventor of Aegis Drive. He boasted that a massive Asian automotive syndicate, Aerotech Global, had already agreed to purchase the manufacturing and distribution rights for a staggering $600 million. "You should be thanking us, Evelyn," Drake sneered, tapping his luxury car keys against the glass. "We gave you a nice little salary while you played with grease and computers down in the basement. But real corporate success requires charisma and power. We're taking this company to the global elite. And frankly, a quiet, antisocial girl covered in motor oil just doesn't fit our luxury image." When I refused to pick up the pen and refused to sign away my father's intellectual property, Eleanor's polite mask slipped completely. She hit the intercom button, called in 3 heavy corporate security guards, and ordered them to throw me off the property immediately. I watched in absolute silence as those guards marched me down the private service elevator, carried me out through the rear loading docks, and through my personal duffel bag, containing my father's original, hand-annotated mechanical notebooks, straight into a dirty water puddle in the alleyway. The head guard stood over me and warned me that if I ever stepped within a 3-mile radius of Vance Automotive facilities again, Eleanor would have me arrested for industrial espionage and corporate sabotage. I sat there on the cold, wet asphalt, holding my father's soaked notebooks against my chest, watching the heavy steel security doors slam shut. They thought I was destroyed. They assumed that a quiet automotive software engineer who had spent her life surrounded by diagnostic software, circuit boards and dyno machines would break down, cry, and disappear into poverty. But Eleanor and Drake were slick corporate salesmen. They understood stock speculation, press releases, and tax havens, but they knew absolutely nothing about deep-level embedded vehicle control systems. They viewed software and powertrain firmware like physical auto parts. They foolishly believed that whoever physically held the vehicle key was the true owner of the engineering inside it. What those greedy frauds failed to realize was that during my endless lonely nights in that subterranean testing bay over the last 3 years, I had anticipated their betrayal. I had watched Eleanor secretly divert millions of dollars from the company's research grants into unregistered shell accounts in the Cayman Islands. I knew that the second Aegis drive achieved 100% operational stability on the test track, they would attempt to erase my name, erase my father's memory, and walk away with the fortune. So when I flashed the final neural navigation kernel into the vehicle's master control unit 3 months prior, I didn't just code the acceleration curves and battery management algorithms. I embedded a silent, undetectable safety switch deep within the microprocessor architecture, known in automotive systems as a kinetic lock. The kinetic lock was an absolute masterpiece of embedded software engineering. It was programmed to keep the high-voltage battery systems, steering actuators, and neural navigation cores functioning smoothly only if the primary ECU received a daily encrypted authorization handshake from my personal, decentralized server at home. If the vehicle's master computer missed that encrypted signal for more than 72 consecutive hours, the kinetic lock would initiate a safe, automated shutdown loop. The high-voltage contactors would disengage, the electric power steering would lock into safety mode, and the digital dashboard would freeze, displaying critical system stability errors across every diagnostic screen. And because Drake lacked the basic mathematical intelligence to read raw C++ firmware logs, he had no idea the kinetic lock even existed. He just walked into the private showroom, saw the gorgeous carbon fiber prototype car, listened to the quiet hum of the electric motors, and assumed he was holding the key to $600 million. Exactly 72 hours after they threw me into the rain, the countdown expired. That afternoon, Drake was attempting to perform a live track demo for a group of lead engineers and technical inspectors sent directly by Aerotech Global. Naturally, when he pressed the engine start button on the prototype, the high-resolution digital dashboard didn't show a green operational status. Instead, every display screen inside the luxury cabin turned bright orange, flashing critical battery control failures and motor logic errors. Panic exploded. At 4:20 p.m., my private encrypted phone rang. It was an unlisted burner line. I answered calmly. On the other end of the line was Drake. The arrogant, condescending tone he had used in the executive suite 3 days ago was completely gone. His voice was shaking, cracking with pure panic. He screamed at me, accusing me of hacking the vehicle mainframe, demanding to know why the prototype was refusing to drive, and throwing critical safety fault codes. He threatened to call federal authorities and have me thrown into a federal prison for 20 years for malicious destruction of property. I sat quietly by the window of my small, quiet apartment, sipping tea, looking out over the city skyline, and spoke in a voice that was ice cold. "Drake," I said softly, "if you are truly the brilliant automotive engineer and sole inventor listed on that multi-million-dollar patent application, then clearing a basic battery logic error should take you 2 minutes. Why are you calling a talentless garage girl for help?" Before he could scream another word, I ended the call and shut off the phone. I didn't just sit in my apartment waiting, though. Passive waiting is for victims. and I wanted total absolute destruction. Over the past 72 hours while Drake was blindly celebrating his fake triumph, I had been working nonstop with Special Agent Robert Vance from the FBI Cyber and Industrial Crime Division, along with senior officials from the International Transportation Safety Board. I provided them with irrefutable, ironclad evidence. My original timestamp software commits, raw telemetry logs dating back 7 years, cryptographic proof of my digital signatures embedded inside the microchips, and forensic financial records proving that Eleanor had illegally forged my father's corporate share transfer documents while he was incapacitated in the hospital. Together, we carefully planned the ultimate trap, aiming directly at the biggest night in the global automotive industry, the International Auto Expo at the Grand Convention Center. The Grand Convention Center was a massive display of corporate luxury and wealth. Over 3,000 elite guests filled the main arena. Billionaire investors, foreign diplomats, automotive journalists, celebrity drivers, and live international news crews with broadcast cameras lined up along the high balconies. Eleanor and Drake had spared no expense to make this night their personal crowning moment. In the center of the main stage, under blinding spotlights, sat the sleek midnight black prototype supercar containing the Aegis drive system, while giant 8K screens projected high-tech animated schematics of the electric motor. Drake stood near the podium wearing an expensive tailored tuxedo, speaking into a wireless microphone, bragging to reporters about how he spent countless sleepless nights in the development bay, hand-building the future of transportation. Eleanor stood beside Mr. Hiroshi Sato, the billionaire chairman of Aerotech Global, holding an engraved gold pen over a leather-bound contract worth $600 million. "Tonight, ladies and gentlemen," Eleanor declared into the microphone, her voice booming through the venue speakers, "Vance Automotive Dynamics ushers in a new era of clean, autonomous mobility. We are officially signing over the global manufacturing rights of Aegis Drive to our partners." Mr. Sato smiled, bringing the gold pen down toward the signature line. "I strongly suggest you put that pen down, Mr. Sato." A clear, commanding voice echoed through the auditorium speakers. The sound carried through the venue speakers with such absolute authority that the entire arena fell into an instant dead silence. The background music stopped. The camera operators immediately turned their lenses toward the back of the room. The heavy double doors at the main entrance burst open. I stepped into the arena, walking steadily down the center aisle. I was wearing a sharp, dark suit, holding an industrial diagnostic tablet. Walking directly behind me were 6 uniformed United States Marshals and 4 senior agents from the FBI Industrial Crime Division. Eleanor's face instantly transformed from a proud fake smile into a pale horror-stricken mask. She practically lunged for the podium microphone, screaming at the venue security team to shoot me or drag me out, telling the crowd I was a mentally unstable, disgruntled former mechanic who had been fired for incompetence. "Security won't lay a hand on me, Eleanor," I said, my voice completely steady as I reached the stage and walked up the steps, standing directly between Drake and the billionaire investor. "Because I am executing a federal warrant issued 2 hours ago by the Federal District Court to perform an immediate biological, forensic, and software audit of the vehicle on this stage." Drake broke into a cold, heavy sweat, his hands shaking so violently, he dropped his microphone onto the stage floor with a loud boom. He stammered that the contract was legally binding, and that I had no right to interrupt their private corporate event. "If this powertrain is truly your engineering creation, Drake, and if the vehicle contains safe, functional code," I said, looking him dead in the eyes, "then you should have zero objections to a quick 5-second diagnostic scan of the vehicle mainframe." Mr. Sato pulled his gold pen back, his eyes narrowing into cold slits as he looked back and forth between Eleanor's panicked face and my calm composure. "Hold the signature," Mr. Sato commanded his legal team. "Let her run the scan." I didn't wait another second. I raised my tablet, pointed the wireless diagnostic link at the sleek black supercar on stage, and tapped the screen to send the final override signal. A deafening, shrill emergency siren screeched through the auditorium speakers. The sleek prototype supercar on stage suddenly glitched out. Its motorized doors slammed shut automatically, its high-resolution digital dashboard flashed bright red, and the high-voltage battery system completely disengaged with a loud mechanical clunk. The massive 8K LED displays behind the podium immediately stopped showing Drake's promotional videos. In their place, the screens began scrolling at lightning speed through thousands of pages of my original, timestamp code commits, my father's hand-drawn circuit schematics, and live financial statements displaying Eleanor's illegal Cayman Island bank accounts in bright yellow highlights. And right in the center of the main display screen, in massive, glowing bold red letters, the system output read, "Powertrain control locked. Neural kernel corrupted. Unauthorized user detected. Sole intellectual property of Evelyn Vance." A massive collective gasp exploded from the audience of 3,000 elites. Dozens of news reporters rushed toward the stage, flashbulbs exploding like a lightning storm, capturing every single second of the disaster on live international TV. "What is the meaning of this?" Mr. Sato roared, slamming his fist onto the table. He turned to Eleanor, his face contorted in pure fury. "You absolute criminal frauds. You tried to sell my corporation $600 million worth of stolen defective junk." Drake completely lost control. His legs buckled beneath him and he collapsed onto the stage floor, weeping hysterically, grabbing his mother's dress, blabbering incoherent excuses. Eleanor tried to back away slowly toward the dark backstage exit, attempting to disappear into the curtains. "Eleanor Vance. Drake Vance!" The lead United States Marshal called out, his voice booming over the chaos. Four marshals stepped up onto the stage, blocking every exit point. The lead officer pulled out a thick stack of federal arrest warrants, stepping directly in front of Eleanor. "Eleanor Vance, Drake Vance," the marshal announced loudly for every live news camera to record, "you are under arrest for federal wire fraud, theft of commercial defense secrets, corporate embezzlement, and international securities fraud." The officers grabbed Eleanor's arms, forcing them behind her back and snapping heavy steel handcuffs onto her wrists. Eleanor lost all her fake elegance, screaming curses at me, kicking wildly as the agents dragged her across the stage. Drake was lifted off the floor, sobbing uncontrollably, his custom tuxedo rumpled and his face covered in tears as he was led past the very investors, journalists, and engineers he had spent months trying to deceive. I walked slowly over to the prototype vehicle, picked up the physical master system key from the console, and looked down at Eleanor as the officers forced her toward the exit doors. "My father built this company on truth, hard work, and engineering perfection to protect human lives," I said, my voice echoing clearly through the quieted hall. "You tried to build an empire on theft and lies, and you forgot the most fundamental law of physics. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction." The legal fallout was swift, brutal, and absolute. With the federal warrants executed and my original software logs verified by the Supreme Court's IP tribunal, the state courts immediately stripped Eleanor and Drake of all corporate authority. The forged share transfers were completely annulled, and full unencumbered ownership of Vance Automotive Dynamics, its research facilities, patents, and testing grounds was legally awarded back to me as Dr. Robert Vance's true biological heir, and the proven author of Aegis Drive. Within 2 weeks, I walked back through the front doors of the headquarters, not through the rear alleyway, but as chief executive officer. I fired Eleanor's corrupt board members, dismantled the fake marketing departments, and reinstated every honest mechanic, technician, and engineer who had been mistreated under Drake's fake management. I uploaded the biological decryption keys from my home server, clearing the kinetic lock and stabilizing the real Aegis Drive system once and for all. But instead of selling the exclusive rights to a private syndicate for $600 million, I partnered directly with transparent, nonprofit safety networks and eco-friendly public transit authorities, ensuring that my father's life-saving electric technology would be manufactured safely and implemented affordably across millions of vehicles worldwide. As for Eleanor and Drake, their offshore bank accounts were completely frozen and seized by federal prosecutors to pay back millions of dollars in damages to defrauded investors. Today, they are serving a non-parole 14-year sentence in a maximum security federal penitentiary, spending their days doing hard manual labor, completely broken by the very greed that drove them to betray their own blood. The fake engineers were deleted from history, the truth was fully restored, and my father's legacy was finally right where it belonged, in the hands of the daughter who built it from the ground up. My stepfamily thought they could throw me out into the cold, erase my father's memory, and sell my intellect for a quick fortune, but they learned the ultimate, unchangeable law of nature. A house built on fraud will always disintegrate the moment light shines upon it. Today, Eleanor and Drake are staring at 4 stone walls inside a federal cell. Vance Automotive Dynamics is leading a global green transportation revolution, and Aegis Drive is saving thousands of lives every single day. But the battle to protect real technology from corrupt forces is far from over. Next week, a rogue rival automotive CEO attempts to sabotage our automated assembly line by hiring a covert hacker to upload a destructive virus into our manufacturing robots and frame my company for a safety failure. If you want to see how Evelyn uses her high-tech laboratory security grid to trap the hacker inside the containment vault and expose the rival CEO on national television, make sure to smash that subscribe button right now, leave a like, and drop a comment below sharing your thoughts on Evelyn's ultimate payback. See you in the next story.